Release the kraken!
Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. In the beginning of time, three god brothers defeated their titan father with the help of a sea monster called the kraken. Afterwards the gods divided the universe among themselves, with Zeus taking the skies, Poseidon the seas, and Hades was left with the underworld. Zeus created mankind so that their prayers could empower the brothers and ensure their immortality going into the future. Many years later, after growing tired of their mistreatment of mortals, King Acrisius rebelled and laid siege on the gods' home of Mount Olympus. Not wanting to kill his own creation, Zeus instead punished Acrisius by imitating him and impregnating his beloved wife. Angered by this, Acrisius ordered the queen and her newborn baby to be cast into the sea, so Zeus punished him yet again by transforming the king into the deformed creature Calibus. He still throws the casket in the ocean, but it's guided by an immortal named Io to a kind-hearted fisherman. Spyro finds Zeus's still living child and with his mother deceased decides to raise him with his wife Marmara. The child grows up to be the Grecian hero Perseus, who begins life on his adopted father's fishing boat with his young sibling. The family have barely caught any fish in recent years and, like all humans of this time, blame the gods for their misfortune. All of mankind has lost faith in the brothers, which is why soldiers from the city of Argos begin desecrating their statues. One almost crushes Spyro's family, who, like the gods themselves, see this as a declaration of war against the heavens. Suddenly winged creatures called Furies ascend from the underworld and start slaying every mortal they deem sinners. They merge into the form of Hades, who sees the family watching and decides to destroy the boat simply out of enjoyment. It sinks to the bottom of the ocean, but Perseus is thrown overboard while his family are all trapped inside and perish when he's unable to reach them in time. The only survivor of the massacres found by soldiers and taken back to the city of Argos. Above them, Zeus is angered by the mortals' defiance and the recent downfall of prayers, leaving him feeling diminished. His brother Hades is pleased to finally see his sibling displaying rage for the first time in millennia, and requests to be unleashed on mankind to terrify them back into having faith. Despite Zeus's son Apollo's objections, Poseidon and Zeus allow Hades to unleash hell on earth, unaware that prayers out of fear and not love will only empower the god of the underworld. Below them, Perseus is brought before King Cepheus, who's celebrating his campaign against the gods and is loved by his consorts, all of who are ill-informed of the hardships outside of their walls and the looming danger closing in. Princess Andromeda shows the only compassion in the room and offers the slave a drink, but it's smacked away by General Draco. The worst of the bunch is Queen Cassiopeia, who throws her daughter under the bus when she compares her beauty to Aphrodite. When she claims that humans are now the gods, even Cepheus cringes as the god of the underworld arrives to dispute it. He instantly takes the lives of all Draco's men, but is surprised by the prisoner's resistance to his initial attack. The moment Hades identifies himself, the room drops to their knees in hypocrisy, hoping to be spared. He shows how easy it is for him to take the queen's life and threatens a deal to unleash the kraken on Argos, unless the people sacrifice their princess that they so easily compare to a god. He gives them until the upcoming solar eclipse to decide and leaves, revealing Perseus as a demigod, which almost gets him killed by Draco and his men, but the king begs the outsider to do what he can to save his daughter from death. Perseus refuses, since he's just an untrained fisherman, and gets thrown in the dungeon where he's visited by Io. She reveals that she was cursed with immortality after refusing Poseidon's advances, and has watched over Perseus's whole life, as he's the one prophesied to defeat the kraken. Once it's destroyed, Hades will be weak enough to defeat, and since he wants nothing more than to avenge the death of his family, the hero agrees. The king gives him a consort of guards to assist, either nearing retirement like General Solon, or rookies like Eusebios, who still prays to Zeus despite being mocked by the others. After a brief cameo by the clockwork owl built by Hephaestus, Perseus and the guards head off on their quest to discover a way to kill the kraken. They're joined by the Ottoman monster hunters Azal and his brother Kukuk, who question if anyone else knows which head to cut off a five-headed hydra should it attack, but Ixus correctly guesses the middle one and they tag along anyway. In hopes of stopping Perseus, Hades finds Calibus living beneath the city and tells him that his wife's bastard still lives. Since he isn't strong enough to do it himself, he grants the fallen king superhuman abilities to kill Perseus before he returns. Meanwhile, the group have set up camp and listen to Ixus play his flute until Solon snaps it, but he pulls out another and continues to score the scene. Draco tries to teach Perseus the basics of the sword, but realizes the only way he's going to get anything out of him is by forcing the demigod to call on his supernatural strength. Afterwards, Perseus is presented with a sword forged on Mount Olympus that only reveals itself to him, but retracts when thrown away as he refuses any of the gods' help, thinking that he can do it as a man. He comes across a flock of winged horses and a large black stallion, all going by the same name, Pegasus. Suddenly, two of the guards are torn apart by Calibus, who's tracked them down by following Zeus's scent on Perseus. He's only able to bite his target before the party arrives and Calibus is forced to fight them all at once. Crushing a Corinthian helmet with his bare hand, he's unable to do the same to the Demigod's skull and gets it sliced off by Draco. When the monster flees, the band gives chase, leaving the severed hand behind to mutate into a scorpion. Unable to keep up, the soldiers follow his trail of blood, but the hunters have already cut him off. Calibus's blood begins to summon giant scorpions from the earth that kill multiple unnamed guards while the group fight back. Draco leaps on the back of one and manages to kill it when Usaboy throws him a spear that he plunges through its armor plating. Another pins Perseus to a pillar and is about to kill him, when Io intervenes and severs its stinger before being swatted away. Perseus saves her by intercepting the charging scorpion that collapses to the ground at the band's feet, leaving the demigod to cut his way out from underneath it. Just then another two arrive with an even larger one this time, but they're halted by the arrival of Sheikh Suleiman and his band of desert sorcerers called Jinn. They're human but use magic to replace their missing body parts with timber and live for hundreds of years. The bite from Calibus begins infecting Perseus, so the Jinn take him back to their shelter to heal him. When Sheik uses his magic on the bite mark, the soldiers think he's attacking Perseus and a fight breaks out. The powerful mage defeats them handily but has Io translate that he also wishes to destroy the gods, and wants to lend a hand to Perseus in destroying Hades. With the arm now fully healed, the group prepare to travel, when Draco aggressively confronts Perseus for his refusal to use the sword, thus letting his men get killed, but Perseus still doesn't want to be beholden to Zeus. With the scorpions now controlled by the Jinn's magic, they continue their journey across the desert to the lair of the Stygian witches. They reach the Shale Mountains where the Titans fell to the gods and locate the witches' camp in the Giant Hand. The three sisters are deformed from their constant use of dark magic and pass a single eyeball between them that gives them divination. For the information they demand payment with one of the soldiers' lives, but Perseus intercepts the eye and threatens to destroy it unless they tell him how to defeat the kraken. The only possibility for killing the kraken is with the head of the Gorgon archer Medusa, who's able to turn any living creature into stone when it catches her gaze. The group travel to the mouth of the underworld, where the hunters refuse to follow but have made Perseus a shield from the scorpion's carapace to protect him. Everyone else is on board including Sheik, but Zeus appears to Perseus for the first time and begs him not to go against his brother. When he sees that words won't sway him, Zeus gives his son a golden drachma, which is the fare they'll need to pay to reach the underworld. With everyone else unsure of how to enter, the Jinn tosses the coin into the river Styx and the ferry appears from the fog, being dragged by lost souls. The ferryman Charon pulls up and they all sail through the underworld until departing at the entrance to Medusa's lair. She was a human cursed by a jealous god for her beauty and turned into a monster, and because of this Io must remain outside due to the curse preventing immortals from entering. The group explore the ruined temple to find the statues of all the soldiers that faced her before them. Suddenly they hear a lady's laughter, and the first to die is Solon, who is fatally shot by the Gorgon's arrow and falls into the fire pit below. Draco takes one through the chest, but still orders Eusebius and Ixus to flank the archer while collapsing to the ground. Once by themselves, Ixus tells his young friend to keep his eyes down lest he be turned into stone, then turns around and looks right into Medusa's gaze on accident. Distraught at his death, Eusebius swings wildly with his eyes closed, then opens them and the Gorgon's right there. His statue crumbles before Perseus, who has no time to grieve as he's the next focus of the Gorgon. She slithers around the temple after him trying to get a look at his face, but he leads her towards Sheik, who just misses the neck and slices off a few snakes from her head. Even Medusa's surprised that her powers don't work on a Jinn, who self-destructs, killing himself and disorientating Perseus. She recovers quickly, but before the Gorgon can kill the hero, Draco uses his last bit of life to break off a stalactite and drop down onto Medusa's tail. It wounds her badly, and with a smile on his face, the general gets to visit his daughter in the afterlife. Realizing that he can use the reflection of his shield, Perseus is able to look at Medusa approaching and lines up the perfect swing to finally behead the Gorgon. The rest of her nerve-stricken body collapses into the fire, and the only survivor returns to Io with a head in a bag. Just then Calibus runs the not-so-immortal through before engaging with Perseus, where he instantly shatters his steel sword. Having been given the Olympian handle back by Draco and with no other option, Perseus uses the god weapon and kills Calibus by running him through. The Mad King turns back into his old sane self, and before dying tells his rival not to be like the gods who screw with them. With her last breath, Io urges Perseus to beat the eclipse back to Argos and save Andromeda, before turning into light particles and ascending to heaven. It summons Pegasus, who becomes the hero's new best friend and flies him back to Argos. Meanwhile, Zeus has given Hades the order to release the kraken, and it emerges from the underworld with humanity as its target. At Argos, the cult of Hades, led by the insane Procopian, grows in numbers, and has built a structure facing the ocean where they plan to sacrifice Andromeda. They invade the palace and take the cooperative princess to be offered up as she wishes to protect her people, but Hades has no intention of honoring his deal and slaughters the townspeople to create new prayers. He's now grown powerful enough that the moment the other gods are sent away he takes Mount Olympus from Zeus, but is reminded of a demigod still in Argos. Perseus arrives at the city when Hades spots him and unleashes the Furies to chase down the Pegasus. The hero is able to get low enough to the ground to allow Uzal and his brother to assist with their tame scorpion. During the intense aerial chase, one of the creatures snatches Medusa's head away from Perseus, but he retrieves it by leaping on top of the Fury and tanking the surface impact into a fire pit. The kraken fully emerges, giving a loud roar at the city, and is about to devour Andromeda, but Perseus pushes his way through the cult of Hades and produces the head. Even the water titan can't help but look at Medusa's face, and instantly goes blind before the curse slowly spreads to the rest of it, creating a massive statue blocking the harbor. Once solidified, Procopion attempts to sacrifice the princess himself with a javelin, but Cepheus stops him at the cost of his own life. Luckily, the kraken collapses on top of the fanatic, but it causes Andromeda to fall into the sea and be knocked unconscious. Before the hero can save her, Hades confronts Perseus and begins boasting about being unkillable, so the demigod raises his sword, calling upon Zeus to empower it, and launches it into Hades, banishing the dark god back to the underworld. After rescuing Andromeda, the pair wash up on shore and both regain consciousness soon after. With the ships for Argos approaching, Andromeda asks Perseus if he'll stay and rule the kingdom with her, as it needs a good leader, but he refuses the offer of being king and prefers to remain a lowly fisherman. He rides along the beach on Pegasus, then flies back to the ruined statue of Zeus where his family was killed. Once there, the god of gods congratulates him and offers him a place on Mount Olympus by his true father's side, but again Perseus refuses any offer of power and reserves himself to remain immortal. Since that's the case, Zeus doesn't want his son to be alone and returns life to Io so that she may keep him company. And the movie ends.